By order of the Peaky Blinders.
Anyway, we're Peaky Blinders. We're not scared of coppers.
That's right.
If they come for us, we'll cut them a smile each.
My word to who? To a Peaky Blinder?
Arthur Shelby of the Peaky Blinders.
Thomas, you're a bookmaker, a robber, a fighting man. You're not a fool.
Did you know they were going to do it before they did it? Because that's the one who's in charge, isn't it? And he knows before it happens.
I know what I know. If you don't know, then you don't fucking know, do you?
Welcome to PBP, a Peaky Blinders podcast. That's right, I'm Jamie G. Esquire 5, and I'm here with my main man, the co-host Magnum Mills, and we're going to break down the latest episode of Peaky Blinders. Mills, why don't you say hi to the audience and make like Mystical and let us know what you're working with.
I mean, the mystical reference is probably apt and fair because you could probably yell, "Danger! Watch yourself!" in pretty much every situation Tommy has got himself into right now. And what are those situations exactly? Tune into this latest episode of PBP to find out. Episode 2 of Season 6, entitled Black Shirt, originally aired March 6, 2022 on BBC One. Again, directed by Anthony Byrne. He directed all the episodes in Season 5 and will direct all the episodes in Season 6. Again, written by creator and showrunner Stephen Knight. And just a reminder here, we will be spoiling all aired episodes of Peaky Blinders, and any major, news releases or whatever will not touch any other possible set leak spoilers, anything like that. It's that time. So, Jamie G, why don't you kind of lead us into the episode here?
Tommy arrives home to see Lizzie and the children, and we learn that Ruby appears to be recovering. We see Tommy has a seizure on his bathroom floor as he hallucinates about fighting for his life in the war, in the tunnels in France. After that, Tommy goes to speak at a meeting of the South Birmingham Labor Party. He gives a rousing speech, if I must say so myself, railing against the elites and the political enemies of the socialist movement.
That's funny because when he's given that speech, I take some notes when we watch this or whatever, and he holds up the little card that says silence. And my first instinct is like he's going to tear that up at some point, right? Mm-hmm. And then he does, like he kind of holds it back. And I'm like, oh no. Then he tears it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, bully for me for being smart. I will say right at the start of the episode, did you have any problem with them kind of like yada yadaing or fast traveling Tommy back home from the United States?
Not really. I mean, I don't really think there was anything great that was going to happen on the boat ride over here. I mean, I think it's I like that they originally, as soon as he gets there, he's like immediately all about business. Before we do anything, we're going to go for a ride. It gets everyone in. Like he's trying to get Ruby checked out every which way from Sunday. And there's kind of a crazy scene here a little bit with Tommy and Lizzie, man, where we're seeing this Tommy's own lack of not being a machine is starting to create a little bit of a divide here with his main chick, dude, his number one, Lizzie from the block. I mean, this is important here. Tommy basically is like, after this, we'll go home. The children will go to bed. We'll go up to the room, and she's like, yeah, is that on, that's on your list too. Cross me off the list. Everything's on a list, and this is a powerful moment here for me, Magnum Mills. And you just see Tommy just has no patience for anything. He is just a man on a fucking mission.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's like multiple things are happening there. Like we find out that Tommy's not sleeping. And then when he says like the one last deal, think about every movie. It's kind of the trope, like, one last heist, one last crook to catch before retirement, one last week or whatever. That always ends well. And I thought she did have a great line there. It was before the one you named where she kind of talked to Tommy and she said, I think it was, you talk as if you're watching everything on the screen. And I think that's the sense you're talking about, that Tommy has become kind of detached here a bit. He is, like you said, not a computer, but he's also calculating and he's having real trouble, I think, showing his emotions or dealing with his emotions. I think he's trying to, compartmentalize a lot of that stuff. And he's certainly just repressing some things. And when it all comes out, it's going to be very rough, both for him and those around him. And I think that's what Lizzie's ultimately kind of afraid of here. She just doesn't know how to deal anymore, because this isn't even the worst of it. The worst is probably yet to come still.
100%. And what's so crazy about this, and this is why I love what they do with Tommy as a character. We're saying all this about his cold, he's all this, but he rushed back for his daughter. So clearly he loves his family and he loves his children. he's not able to be a full-time loving, caring father or husband or anyone, brother, son. It doesn't matter, because he is all about business, bro. And one other thing I want to touch on here was the seizure scene. This was really confusing for me. And, you know, you brought up a good point. Like, was it okay with them basically yada, yada, yadaing and just not showing his trip back? After he has the seizure, and Lizzie asks him if it's happened before, he says once on the boat ride back, not as bad. So they could have actually opened with him on the boat by himself in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, crossing the fucking pond on the way back from Canada to Britain, and essentially show him having the seizure there. But they didn't, and I like how they did this. But the scene, as powerful as it was somewhat confusing. All of a sudden, it was like just a hard cut, dude. Like no transition, just right from like one thing, boom, hard to he's seizing on the floor in front of this tub. I didn't understand what all the blood was. Did he fall? Was that a cut? Did something happen there? And it was just a strange scene. It was weird. It was hard to follow. I know this is going to be a big deal, and obviously we could guess about all the things that's wrong with Tommy here. In terms of he's not sleeping, he's seriously messed up ever since Grace died. You could argue from the war, like PTSD, all this stuff, right? That's going to be a recurring theme, but it's just, I found that scene to be a little confusing, but powerful nonetheless.
I think there's a lot of layers to unpack there. You could go in a couple different ways here. And first, like, remember how going into basically this season, we never saw Tommy Shelby. Like, every time we saw him, he was dressed in a nines, three-piece suit, whatever. We never saw him really naked or vulnerable or anything. And now we're seeing here that we see him at his most vulnerable, just laying on his back, seizing on the floor. But I also thought that he's bullshitting when he said like just a one other time. I thought this carried back to at least the events of the end of season 5. Remember when he's like going back to seeing the alternate length with the gun in his head, and talks about how he left, he had to get out of the car to puke, and at that time he was seeing things and everything. That that might lead to a little bit of a prediction I have later, but I think this has been going on for a long time, way longer than just the one time on the boat, if that even happened. I think he, for better or worse, said that to try to appease Lizzie. So I think, whether they call it a prediction or not, I think this is a more long-standing affliction. It's not just something that started happening recently.
Yeah. And what's crazy, man, is he puked outside the doctor's office too.
That's what I'm saying.
So there's something there. It'll be interesting to see that develop. And I gotta say, man, Tommy was incredible giving his speech. And I don't know if it's just me, but did the IRA chick, Laura McKee, who was there watching him, did she get just a smidge wet here? I mean, it seems like she was like, whoa, like Tommy's that guy. Like she saw him in a new light, kind of, because she never actually saw him. They spoke on the phone many, many times, but she got to see that bravado, that charm. And I think she's like, yeah, I want him. So high cheekbones.
Maybe a touch damp. I would say that I think that's in the end when they have their meeting that they go to have the Garrison. After this, at the end of that, when she's like, this is not what I expected, and the look she kind of gives there at that point, yeah, I think this is when she first started being like, oh, maybe he's not who I thought he was. And then when it gets to that point, she's like, oh, I'm gonna fuck this dude. So it's going to be a race to basically who bangs Tommy first and knocks him off the wagon, drives him to drinking. We'll see. But again, it's amazing. Like Tommy in politician mode is amazing. We get a couple different, shots of it, both being on the floor in the House of Commons or at a rally or behind the scenes. He's politicking all the time. It's almost his primary mode now. It's kind of crazy. And no matter what else he has going on behind the scenes, in his head, whatever, when it comes time to make those speeches, to talk, or to even have a great answer ready for a reporter, he's always got it, man. And that's why we fucking love Tommy Shelby, because no matter what, dude always, he always comes through, man. He's that connect, man. He's the best connect.
Yeah, he really is, man. And I mean, this is going to be interesting to see as that relationship continues between Tommy and Laura. And once Gina gets in the picture, boy, oh boy, Tommy's going to be a busy man. Magnum Mills, speaking of Tommy with Laura McKee, let's talk a little bit about the deal that they strike.
Yeah, obviously we see Tommy meet Laura McKee. She's the woman that from the IRA who spoke to him on the phone in the first episode. He'd never seen or met her before, as they indicate here. Also, they talk about they've been doing business together for a while. She says that she's the battalion commander of the, excuse me, I'm going to probably butcher this, but the Fermanagh IRA. They head over to the garrison for a more private meeting. In there, Tommy tells Laura that Jack Nelson declined the opium deal that was pitched to his subordinates in the season premiere. Then he shows her Jack letters that he had, correspondence from the president and whatnot. Tommy then proposes that they assist Uncle Jack in determining that fascism will be the dominant, the victorious political ideology in Great Britain, which he will then report to the United States. That will give them the favor they need to get the deal done. And she agrees to help Tommy. Again, great scene. A little bit of tension. Again, we get the cool thing with Tommy pouring the crystal clear water. I'm not sure where they got all this clear water back then, but some cool looking water. This is a big deal too, because it alludes to, remember when he was talking about the opium deal with Uncle Jack, he alluded to friends in Belfast. That's pretty much confirmed here to be the IRA. So they've been doing business together. And like you said, it gets a little more personal, I think, as the meeting goes on, right down at the end where there could be a little bit of sexual tension. And, there's a great kind of exchange, which may or may not be my favorite piece of dialogue in the episode. Jamie G, any thoughts kind of there, on that meeting?
Yeah, I mean, that scene may also contain some of my favorite dialogue as well. So I think we get to see Tommy really start to show maybe his political ideology a little bit and how he fancies himself a man in the middle. I mean, he's basically a modern day bipartisan person, right? Which is a dying thing. And what's crazy is it was even dying back in 1933. When you had a rise of fascism and socialism hanging on. And, it just seems like there's always these big divides in politics. And Tommy finds himself in the middle. And I think he also understands how to navigate extremely effectively from the middle. I think this is really smart of Tommy. And again, you're seeing him outthinking all of his nemesis and setting them all up on multiple levels and utilizing all his connections and contacts in his network to outthink all these people. He is on a personal war with every single person that is in his way. And it's just masterful to see him navigate through it all.
He's willing to cross anybody. I guess I would say, do you have any worry that he kind of just, like, there's so many layers, so many strengths now that he kind of just gets lost in it, or he can't keep, juggling the chainsaws here? It seems like, he played the video game, he beat it on expert level, and he's like, great, let me do that blindfolded and backwards or something. It's just the degree of difficulty here, like messing with damn near world history at this point. Like, there's a lot of stuff that could happen here, and almost assuredly it's going to end up in some real bodies hitting the floor, especially given this is the final season. And I think something maybe we could discuss a little bit more in depth at the end, or predictions or something, but I think the IRA is going to play, a pretty big part here, especially as we see kind of, Tommy being torn to, does he have to pick an ideology? Can he remain in the center of that circle? Is that possible? Will gravity pull him out? Remember being on, the Gravitron back in the day at the fair, it just spins and spins and spins. And unless when you start out in the center, you're good. But as soon as you start moving out, you get sucked out into the wall, then you're in the circle. So I think he has to be careful to kind of stay out of that, the gravitational pull, like Gravitron. I think, again, one thing, one bad, overnight encounter, he has a couple drinks, and then all of a sudden, man, get pulled right to the outside and you're caught in the circle.
He has got to be absolutely perfect. He is now find himself in the same shit, just ratcheted up the stakes to the highest possible degree, dealing with, like you said, world history, looming war. I mean, this is, whether he knows it or not, this is the highest possible stakes he could have. And he has to be perfect navigating through it. And so far, 2 episodes in, he's been perfect navigating through it.
Right before we move on, baby prediction here. Like, we've heard, U.S. politicians name dropped or whatever. Any chance we see like an actual U.S. president portrayed on camera before the end of the show?
End of the show, no. In the movie, yes.
Fuck, I hate you. I agree with you, kind of. All right. Move on with the episode. God damn it.
Well, Magnum Mills.
No, it's all right. You don't need to be contrarian for the sake of being contrarian. It's cool.
With all that handled, we see Tommy leave with Ada to attend to Arthur, who apparently has moved on to straight up injecting drugs with a syringe. That's right. He is full blown chasing the dragon here with the needle. Ada tells Tommy that while she's trying, she's not like him or Polly, which was an important line. Ada is worried about Tommy playing footsie with the fascists, but Tommy assures her that by being among them, he can undermine them. And also very important strategy of Tommy. He tells her that he understands if she can't go along with his plan, he wouldn't blame her at all, actually. But this is his mission, and he will have no limitations. Again, kind of a runner here, Magnum Mills. Tommy Shelby is about to do whatever it is he's about to do, but one thing is clear, he will not put any self-imposed limitations or allow anyone else, family or other, to have any limitations on what he's trying to do. That's big.
This is like the worst possible version of the one last job trope. It's one last job with no limitations. You know, it's only really the movie that prevents me from saying, oh yeah, Tommy Shelby's going to be dead before the end of the series, just because I think he's going to be in the movie, and I don't think they're doing a prequel or something. So yeah, dude, there is a lot to break down here. I do have to say, I really enjoy what they've done with Ada's character. You know, she's kind of bounced all over the place. I think every season, it's almost, they've given her a new persona, kind of. Like, she has to operate in different circles, do different things. I think the actress has done a good job of it, and they've managed to kind of build it into this interesting character that kind of does have a foot in all of it. So she might be the best suited to understand what Tommy's going through, but yet she wants to get out of it worse than any of the rest of them. So it kind of puts her, you know, between the proverbial rock and a hard place, which sucks for the character, but for us, always pretty interesting to check out. You know, any other thoughts on this one for you, Jamie G?
Yeah, Mills, I agree. I mean, Ada, but you got to think she has always kind of wanted to get out of this Shelby situation, right? I mean, she ran away with Freddie. She wanted to, she joined the cause. She moved away. Like, she's always kind of wanted to be out, but she keeps getting pulled back in. Just when you think they're out, they pull you back in. You know, so I mean, it's clearly one of these with Ada, and her comment about I'm not Polly, you know, you can tell she's having a hard time. She knows that Polly would have had Arthur cleaned up by now, and she's really struggling with it. And you can't really replace Polly, man. And, you know, that's an interesting thing too. And you wonder if Polly has something to do with his seizures, or if it's been, like you said, more long going than that. I mean, it's going to be incredible to see how that happens. But I do like what they're doing with Ada here, and the combination of kind of a little bit more Ada and a little bit more Lizzie, I think, is kind of where they're going. And we'll see what they do with Gina and maybe Mosley's new mistress, and just see if it's kind of a combination, you know, running back by committee type approach here in terms of replacing Polly. I don't think it's going to be any one main lead stepping up. I think it's going to be by committee.
Yeah, the RBBC there, the running back by committee is a good call. Jamie G, one thing I wasn't quite sure of when Ada comes in and she talks about Arthur having the syringe in his arm when she caught him. Do you think she was referring to the scene we saw in the episode last week, or that's another incidence of that happening? Because I didn't remember seeing a syringe in his arm last week, but after she kind of gave, you know, threw down the gauntlet to the owner of the opium den there, I didn't think, you know, they'd be having Arthur back either. I'm just curious because the show's never really done something like that before. That seems a little like time skippy, where maybe they showed things in two different episodes if they were going on at the same time.
No, I think it's in addition to the opium den. I think he's now upgraded his addiction to the alleyway of Garrison Alley, where he's sitting out in the rain with a needle in his arm. Instead of going to the opium dens and smoking it until he passes out, he is now mainlining it and shooting it up. I think this has been a progression of Arthur's addiction and his just spiraling out of control.
I think you're right, unfortunately, and that makes me very sad for our guy Arthur. And that kind of, I think, goes with the idea here of no limitations, right? You know, it keeps coming back around, and maybe that's going to be kind of, you know, one of the overarching themes for the season. And I think that probably wraps us up on that scene. So now we're going to get to, you know, as they say in the business, a big one. We get this really cool scene of Tommy riding an old school elevator. It's got this weird kind of red lighting. It's almost a little bit horror movie-ish, and you hear this music playing. And then there's this kind of long one shot through all of the, like a distillery, through all of these barrels and everything, as we see Tommy make his way to meet the one, the only, Alfie Solomons. They reminisce about opera, about war and death, before finally moving on to discussing the opium deal. Alfie seems more concerned with coming up with the final act of his opera. And Tommy has an idea, and he pitches Alfie that Tommy has written the final act for Alfie with this opium deal, which he needs to do also because Uncle Jack has killed a member of his family, and that should make Alfie angry, and Tommy's wondering why it's not.
Absolutely. Charlie Solomons. I thought this scene was incredible. I love Elfie Tommy in Elfie's territory. I love it when it's like in this dark like basement place with Elfie having all these crazy things around, and you never know what, you may live or you may die, like you might not make it out of there kind of thing. And I love when that happens. One thing I will say about this Magnum Mills is, again, Tommy was pretty masterful here. While, you know, it was funny, Elfie didn't want him to smoke. The guy, when he was getting patted down before he got let in, said Mr. Solomons no longer accepts smoking. So, you know, what's Tommy do? He immediately lights up a cigarette. Elfie tells him not to. He continues to smoke it. Elfie tells him, please put it out, tells him why. And Tommy says, now you're a man who can't even put out my cigarette for me when you want it put out, you know, something to that effect. So that was a really powerful scene. And you could tell Elfie's been through a lot, bro. And how much is he in it to win it here as a ruthless, cold-blooded killer mob boss? I'm not so sure. But bringing up his uncle, Charlie Solomons, who was killed by Jack Nelson, was pretty smart thing. That maybe that's just the thing that gets Elfie back into that ruthless, Hasidic mafia style boss.
I mean, that's kind of how they leave it, right? They do their thing. Of course, they're never going to show them agreeing to a deal, but, you know, Tommy kind of makes his pitch and you finally see Elfie be like, how much are we talking about again? And then it cuts away. I mean, just brilliant. And I think the idea of opera is kind of really applies here, because I think that's who Elfie sees himself. You know, when he talks about the sound an opera singer makes being like when he would like stick his bayonet into somebody in the war. You know, another dude, again, understandably has a lot of issues dating back to this horrible war, and just dude's been through some shit, you know, right down to getting shot in the face, basically. I mean,
by Tommy. Yeah.
You know, and I think especially the scene is just the music, the lighting, everything about it. Like, look, just watch the scene a couple times and see how they shoot Tommy with the shadows under his eyes, and they keep Elfie in the half until he isn't, and then they highlight his scars and everything. I mean, it's just, I wanted to pick just one line or something from this, but this is just one of those things where it's just a, you know, it's in itself. It's like an opera in itself. It's its own little 3-act play, and it's just fucking fantastic.
It really is. Outstanding scene, Magnum Mills. After that, we then move over to prison, and we see Michael, and he just still has his terrible, horrible looking mustache. I just can't freaking stand it. He used to be so cool, the way he French inhaled his cigarette smoke and blew it out his nose. Like, now, dude, I can't even look at you because of your mustache. You're just not cool anymore. Anyways, he is visited by Gina, who in a very provocative way tells him that Uncle Jack said that, Michael, you're going to be getting out in a few weeks. They also talk about Gina's upcoming trip to London, and she assures him in a very strange way, i.e. that clearly she's lying through her teeth, that she has everything under control and there is nothing to worry about. Michael demands to be the one who kills Tommy, and Gina says that Uncle Jack agrees, saying, let the kid do it. Magnum Mills, this was probably the weirdest scene in the episode for me. She comes in there, she takes her thing off. It's kind of like it's going to be a conjugal visit, but it's not. And then she's very clearly saying, trust me, you'll be the only man I'm thinking about. Every day at 12 p.m. and 5 a.m., our souls will connect and we'll be thinking about each other and we'll bang. It was very weird. She's clearly going to go to London and bang Tommy. And it's just, you know, you almost feel bad for Michael here a little bit. He's just completely getting manipulated and played by Gina, who's becoming a bona fide succubus. And I say that in a good way.
I 100% agree that I don't think Gina really gives a shit about Michael. He was a stepping stone onto something or whatever. I think if it comes down to it, she wouldn't hesitate to leave him in jail, offer him up for sacrifice, burn him, you know, to the cops again, whatever. I don't think she really cares. I will say that she is kind of, you know, I have no problem with the actress is doing, but she's almost like vibrating on a different level than everyone else. But I think they're trying to portray that kind of those times, like she's been insulated in this family and like her life is glamorous and fantastic. But she also kind of wants to get down and dirty, but she doesn't, I don't know if she quite understands how to do it. Like she has the ruthlessness, she's smart, but perhaps lacks the street smarts or whatever. And that's why I think you see like kind of this weird seduction thing with Michael, where they basically talk about they will masturbate simultaneously or whatever. And my guess is she does not stick to that at all, but Michael does. I think she hit us all the hand in this relationship. And I think that was right. And I think that was the point of the scene, really, just to put the, just to hammer that point in that, yeah, Michael is totally smitten with her and she is using him. That's how I feel about it. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's really what I stand on that relationship. And that's basically what I thought the point of having that scene was, and especially because that few weeks for Michael, you're really going to be surprised if it turns into a few months.
Not at all. I said it in the predict. I think that it's very likely Michael stays in prison this entire season. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they just basically tuck him there, save the revenge plot for the movie, and let all this other shit work itself out in this season.
Yeah, if Tommy killed Gina, that would be really a very choice. Like, because then it's like double revenge, kind of.
I mean, yeah, double secret probation revenge. I mean, that's
get Arnold here and to cross it over with the Commando sequel, and we're good to go. Alyssa Milano, she's not doing much else, right? We're good.
Her biological clock is ticking. Oh no, wait, that's Marissa Tomei.
I can't believe you always get. I mean, they're both very good-looking Italian women, so I'm not complaining really. So, yes. And then there's a little demand here at the end, right before we move on. Like, obviously we don't think Michael's going to kill Tommy, right?
Not in season 6.
So this is just like, do you really even think Uncle Jack said that, or no, that like he can kill him, or do you think Gina's just
no? Okay. I think Gina's just purely Uncle Jack is not going to allow Michael. Michael doesn't have a say in jack shit. He is nobody in the totem pole of Boston, the Boston family, in my opinion. So
yeah, I'm not even sure really. Like Gina's like what his favorite
Gina manipulating him.
Like I'm not even sure she really has the hand with him that she. I'd kind of like to see that. Shoe on the other foot kind of thing where she has it over Michael, but then obviously Uncle Jack just lording it over her. Probably on to the next scene here. And we see, it's a brand new scene, a crowd's yelling, they're angry, and the camera slowly pans up and you see the kind of Lizzie and Tommy from the back, they're walking in a building, flying Nazi banners openly. Crowd is very, very not happy with Tommy as in his role as an MP for attending this event, which is a fascist rally for Oswald Mosley. Here we meet Mosley's mistress and soon-to-be wife, Diana Mitford, based on a real character, or I shouldn't say real character, but based on a real person. Based on a real person. There's a ruckus at the front entrance, and who is it? Of course, it's Arthur Shelby making his fucking arrival. Tommy makes Arthur trade clothes with Johnny Dogs because Arthur showed up in full black shirt regalia as requested by Mosley. Tommy slaps Arthur around a bit and implores him to get sober. He tells Arthur that he can help him reunite with Linda if he gets his shit together and gets off the junk. They bond by beating up some Nazi black shirts.
Magnum Mills, I'm not going to lie. I just got to cut in here with a little bit of all about Arthur because, dude, it was great to get Arthur here. Even though it was limited, I love this so much, and I'll talk about it a little bit more because he makes one of my favorites, one of my mentions here. As we get further through this podcast, those listening will find out where I place him and this scene. But I thought it was awesome. It's just perfect. Arthur fucking Shelby. I mean, he comes in, he's like a fucking bull in a china shop. He's all over the place. He's loud. He's boisterous. He's a total loose cannon. Very well done here by the actor that plays Arthur, and you really start to see Tommy. I mean, he's trying here, man. He believes he can pull him through, but he's really breaking out all the stops. He needs his brother. He even says, and I quote, "I need me brother."
Fantastic scene. And probably the only thing we didn't touch on is that, way back towards the beginning of the episode, when Laura McKee from the IRA meets Tommy after the rally there, Arthur's there, and she starts to talk about how they might want to get revenge for the killings, Polly and company. Arthur stops her and he tells her, "Oh, it's a gypsy tradition. You cannot mention, the name of the dead and company." And he really kind of seemed to have his shit together there. So I had some hope that he had kind of come around from where we saw him in last week's episode, where he was passed out at the opium den, Ada writing his name across the chest and everything, make sure, return to sender. But, he falls off the wagon again quick here. And that brings us, pretty much get that other scene about Ada talking about, Arthur being fucked up in Garrison Lane with the syringe. And then he's here. But am I wrong, or did it really seem like Tommy did manage to talk some sense into him a little bit? Like he got through, I thought.
He got through to him, especially the Linda thing, and I need you. We got a lot more to do. Like those are words Arthur wants to hear. And I think he got through to him. He sobered up a little bit. He was able to change the shirts and get himself together. And he got clean enough to beat the shit out of some black shirts. That was pretty awesome. But dude, I do want to say this real quick. The scene was also, a lot was going on and it was disruptive but dude, it was also pretty hilarious, man. The way he's talking to Johnny Dogs, he looks like a waiter.
Poor Johnny Dogs. I was going to say that. I just want to say poor Johnny Dogs.
Dude.
He's such a good human. Like he's trying so hard for them.
He really is.
He's like, God damn it, I'm doing this, and now I got to give up my clothes, and then he's going to dress as a black shirt. Like,
and Arthur's just hilarious here. I mean, dogs, get me a fucking drink. I mean, he's just so funny, dude. And
he's some old school. Yeah, he takes the hat off and he's going to take the dude's eyes out. And again, great lighting and cinematography here in that fight. It's almost all in silhouette. Very cool, but you can still see what's going on. I mean, masterfully done. I think a great exchange between Tommy and Arthur with him trying to hammer it home. But my question is, do you really believe that A, Tommy knows where Linda is, and B, that do you really think there's any chance that Linda's actually ever taking Arthur Shelby back?
Yes and no. Yes, I think Tommy knows where Linda is because I think Tommy's a dude who can find out anything Tommy wants to find out, period. Number two, this is all strategy. He is using Linda not to get her back together with Arthur and Arthur to relive this fantasy. He is simply using this as a blasted narcon to wake Arthur up out of his opium-induced drug addiction, to get him clean. And that's it. This is just a giant piece of bait that he can get in front of Arthur to convince him to get right. And then he'll need him to do some Peaky Blinders family shit. Because when you think about it, he doesn't have John. He's got gypsy shit turning on him. Michael's in prison. He's got enemies now tied into Michael. He needs Arthur here in a big way. Big way.
He absolutely does. I just question, I think I agree with you that Tommy would know where Linda is, but do you think she really wrote that letter?
I don't know. No, probably not. I think
I kind of want to have my cake and eat it too, a little bit, that Tommy knows where she is, but still, he couldn't trust her to write the right letter, so he had someone do it.
Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, this is Tommy's plan to get Arthur sober. He's trying multiple things, and as he ramps up his efforts, and dangling the Linda thing. Shit, if that doesn't do it, like this is his shot. Like this has got to work. Otherwise, I don't know what he does. Sort of locking him, strapping him to a bed for a week and letting him sweat it out.
I mean, Tommy slapped him around, tried to talk some sense into him, and he got to beat up some Nazis. If this doesn't do it, I'm not sure what will.
Yeah, hopefully that combo is just what Arthur needs so we can get our guy off the back. I do expect him to be bigger and bigger in terms of the amount of screen time in his role each and every episode that goes by. So hopefully next week it doubles from this week, and so on and so forth. Give us more Arthur, please.
Yes, sir. Dean Cain, sir.
Yes, sir. Magnum Mills. After that, Tommy and Lizzie meet with Mosley and Diana. Boy, this is a little firecracker of a scene. Lizzie and Diana exchange a few barbs, and the foursome retire to somewhere more private to discuss business. Tommy informs them that Jack Nelson is acting as an envoy for the president, of course, showing his letter backing up his claim. Lizzie tells Diana that while she doesn't know much about this business at all, she has fucked her husband, her future husband, I should say, in Mosley. And with that, she leaves the meeting. Mosley tells Tommy before their venture to move forward, he must do something about his wife. This was a firecracker of a scene, Magnum Mills.
And I didn't quite know what to take from that, if they had some further underlying issue with Lizzie, or it was just like, you got to keep your, like someone would say that, the movie's back, you got to keep your bitch in check or whatever. How did you think it was a big deal, or they were just like, yeah, you can't be letting her do that?
I think they're going to try to attack Tommy through Lizzie. They're clearly, even if they go into this venture together, they're not friends. And Mosley is not someone that trusts Tommy, and Tommy does not trust Mosley. And they're clearly working together, but against each other all at the same time. I think they're going to attack Tommy through Lizzie. And this is just them planting passive aggressive seeds to continue to do that. I don't think it's like anything other than that.
So what did you think when they first kind of showed Diana and they do this deliberate, like, drop everything spotlight focusing with her and Tommy tries to play it off to Lizzie like, oh, I need to make her feel desirable or whatever to make the thing work or whatever. At that point I was like, oh shit, he might bang her. So now I'm not sure if it's going to be Diana or Gina, but spoiler alert, one of my predictions will have something to do with him doing one of those two things very soon, because I thought, again, a weird kind of sexual tension thing. And I don't know, maybe if he gets mad at Lizzie, he bangs her because she's banged Mosley, or maybe he does it for political reasons. I don't, dude, Tom, this is Tommy. What if he starts drinking and the next time Tommy has a drink, everything's on the table?
Oh, there is nothing he
could like all of a sudden decide, now I'm mad about that, even though he's known about it forever. Now he's mad.
Now he's got to get even, and so he goes and he bangs her. Yeah, dude, I could see that, and they become Eskimo brothers, and then they like, I could definitely see it. But let's not forget,
that's how fascism is defeated, through Eskimo brother powers.
Hey, Ada called it originally. She said, "Oh, you're going to solve the world's problems with your cock," and Tommy may just do that after all. But
can we change the title of the podcast?
Yeah, exactly. Is it too late to do that, dude? One thing here though is that there's 3 women in the running to get Tommy first here, right? We've got Gina, we now have Mosley's mistress, and let's not forget Little Miss IRA.
Yeah, Laura there from the IRA.
So he's got 3. I wasn't a huge fan of that scene, but the one where they spotlight the 2 and show them directly, unless there's something there, maybe they know each other. Maybe Diana is playing Mosley at Tommy's.
Well, I think she's definitely playing him, and from like the
there's
historical
something
thing,
going
I
on.
think that makes sense, but
yeah. So maybe there's something going on. Maybe they have a separate side deal, or they will. Obviously, it means something. I guess we'll see that unveil as we move on. But yeah, strange scene. I liked the tension between Lizzie. Lizzie didn't back down here, and she said what she wanted to say, and she left, I thought, with grace after basically dropping the mic here. So I like Lizzie in this one.
Yeah, and overall, I think this is one of the best examples of what you could do, which is kind of like a chess piece moving episode. They're kind of introducing people, circling around, getting everything set up, because all of a sudden, there's only 6 episodes. We're already a full third of the way through this season. It's kind of nuts with this, so they have to get all their ducks in a row, so to speak. And I think that's what they're doing here. But it's still very good and interesting, despite the fact that, the writers are having to do some kind of logistical heavy lifting here. And that sets up what we've all been waiting for. We, for the first time, get to meet Uncle Jack Nelson. He meets with Tommy in this big, huge church with somehow no seating. It's just all these areas you can walk around. Very cool. But, they start with some personal talk. They discuss their upbringing, the first time they killed somebody, how you talk with everybody when you meet them. They finally get down to business, and Uncle Jack acts like he doesn't want anything to do with any drug trade, any opium in Boston, but he is interested in meeting powerful supporters of fascism in England. He doesn't want the guys wearing the black shirts. He wants the rich guys in the tuxes and the whatnot. Tommy offers him access and insight into Winston Churchill, amongst others, in exchange for being able to sell his opium in Boston. He tells Jack that if he doesn't like that, he can deal with Churchill himself, and Tommy will sell his wares to the South Boston Jews. Jack tells Tommy that he will think a great deal about what he said.
Yeah, that line at the end there was so awesome. And again, I thought this scene was shot from a cinematography standpoint, absolutely outstanding. I mean, the darkness, they're alone in this church. At first, I thought it was like one of the other dudes, the father from like the villain from like season 2 or 3 or whatever, but like season 3. But you realize real quickly that it's Uncle Jack. I was surprised Uncle Jack was so young. This is truly a young Jack Kennedy. I guess when you start to think about JFK, his time in office, Bay of the Pigs, I guess, 60s ish. So, I guess at that point it's 1934. So maybe it's right. I mean, but you start to see that, the role that this guy had, and just, and the fact that Tommy's kind of outsmarting him again, the fact that Tommy has a letter, he knows he's there to see who's who amongst fascists and kind of report back. So this is, and honestly, this is kind of the birth of the CIA in a lot of ways, isn't it? And this is exactly what they did with so many different things. When they wanted to get to know something, they just made deals with their enemies to get to know how that shit works. And you start to see it here a little bit with Mr. Bootlegger himself, Jack Nelson.
Well, I mean, it's way easier to try to, turn someone who already runs in those circles than introduce a new person to those circles, especially when the higher up you go, the smaller the circle. Overall, Uncle Jack had a lot of hype here. Jack Nelson, this was kind of a big deal. Like you said, I thought they were going to go a little bit older with it, although when I think about it, the timeline pretty much makes sense. But I thought they were going to maybe go a little older, like maybe a little bigger dude, a little more gravitas or whatever. This guy, I think what they're going for is he is basically the American Tommy. And I think that's a conversation they're having when they talk about how similar they are and everything. I think that's what the show is trying to, set up, is this is kind of like, this is almost like what Tommy wants to be, right? I mean, this is just a slightly more up-jumped, cleaner, whatever you call it, version of Tommy. And I think this whole scene is basically just a dick measuring contest, right? Let's call it what it is. At the end, no one really agrees to anything. This was just kind of, almost like a first, Tinder date or something. They kind of like got, they looked at each other's profiles. They thought it was cool. They made the swipe. Now they met up for the first time. No coffee, no drink even, just a little, meet cute in a public place. And now they're going to decide whether or not they're going to take the relationship to the next level.
Yeah, and this may or may not be a Tinder swindler situation. It wouldn't surprise me if it is. I think they both had some strategy around this meeting, and they both know things about the others that the others don't know they know. And just gun to your proverbial Agent Johnson, Magnum Mills, who won this duel?
Oh, this has got to be a draw, I think. I really feels like a draw because no one walked off with any hand. No one got like a great last line or whatever. If anybody, I guess it would be, I guess, whatever, to give the tiebreaker to Jack, I guess, because he gets the last line.
Tough scene. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that in the future. I really liked it, though. I thought it was cool how it was in the church. Two Catholic boys. One thing that was interesting, you don't really ever see Tommy being religious or referring to himself. I guess I didn't really realize he was Catholic before this episode, so that was kind of cool. Maybe I
think in the same episode he referred to himself both as Catholic when he was young and an atheist now. So
yeah, okay. So you kind of get that for the first time this episode.
Like raised Catholic, but after the war, I think he basically gave up any, whatever claim to religion or what, but he still does believe in like gypsy superstitions and whatnot.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't think he believes in like a supreme being or whatever.
He's a complicated man, Magnum Mills. Nevertheless, this was cool. I guess just really quickly before we move on, do you think Uncle Jack lived up to it here? I mean, this was his big moment. The camera swung around and he's standing there in the church. Did he give you the level of authority that you expected to see as they've hyped him up for an episode and 3/4 here of another one?
Overall, I think I liked it a lot. I think there would have been some temptation to give him some kind of big elaborate scene. Like, say, remember in Game of Thrones, the first time you meet Tywin Lannister, he's like skinning a deer or whatever, like that, to make him like be talking to the president or, slowly killing somebody or something. Here they choose to do it quietly in a very, grand setting and make him basically seem, like I said, the equal of Tommy Shelby. And that's one thing throughout the show is, Tommy's talked about a couple of times, like he's going to keep going until he meets someone he can't defeat. And we've already heard, people start saying, maybe you've already met that person. And, maybe he did just meet that person. And I think that's what the show is trying to, definitely lean on here is the parallels between, Tommy and Uncle Jack. And again, that's why, I said it already, but that's why they focus, I think, on their upbringing and their similarities.
Can't wait to see where it goes, Magnum Mills. Let's move on to the next scene here, and that's back at the Shelby home. We see that Ruby has fallen ill again. She's running a high temperature. She's hearing voices, including the Gray Man. Back at the House of Commons, Tommy gives a ravaging speech about a bill he's going to submit, which will help to improve housing conditions for the less fortunate. At the same time, we're seeing Ruby coughing up blood and Lizzie frantically trying to reach Tommy by phone. It looks like Tommy is jumped in his office, but it's a hallucination. Another one of those kind of moments where he's having his seizure. You don't realize it to the end. Again, somewhat of a confusing scene. Tommy's having another seizure is what you finally get out of that. And then Ruby says that the gray man is coming for her and Tommy as well. I love this gypsy shit. I am totally okay with it, dude. I like it as another crazy dimension of Tommy Shelby. I'm not mad about it at all.
I absolutely agree, because you no matter what, even the most analytics minded atheist person you meet, they'll have some stupid superstition. Everybody has something, and they're usually, they're handed down by your family or whatever. And it's the same thing as anything else. It's the way people try to make sense out of the world. Like how many times, like how many times you got to wear the same underwear if the team's on a winning streak or whatever. We know probably deep down it doesn't matter, but we want the good things to keep happening. We want to, do whatever we can within reason to make it happen. And I think that's kind of what's going on here, but Tommy, this is kind of, ingrained too. Just that's his life, had he not gone to the war or something, he might even be way deeper into this kind of stuff. So, I think he's probably for the most part utilized the best part of his gypsy upbringing as far as his ability to, kind of hustle people, being a politician and businessman and whatnot, both in having good business sense and then actually, hustling people when it comes down to it. But, I don't really know quite what to make of, the whole Ruby being sick plot line. I don't know if it ties in to the Tommy seizure plot line. Are they both sick? Are they independent? Are they really cursed? Jamie G, any thoughts?
I think it has to tie in, because otherwise I don't think it'll get there for me. It's too big of a coincidence. They're spending a lot of time. They basically dedicated 3 big scenes in this episode to Tommy's hallucinations. And his fighting, right? Fighting the guy, hallucinating, having the seizure. So it's kind of a big deal now. And it always is kind of backed up or sandwiched or around Ruby and her health. So it just feels like, and the fact that Ruby said the gray man is coming for her and Tommy, it just feels like this is related. I think it has to be for me.
Do you think that there's any chance that Tommy's ailments are basically, fully mentally related, or do you think they're like, is it possible that it really is just, hardcore PTSD, panic attack type stuff? Or, I mean, it seems to be more physical than that, I think. So is that just a trigger? I want to think that there's some kind of correlation between the two. I'm just struggling to figure out what it is without kind of wildly speculating.
Yeah, I mean, and it could be the guy doesn't sleep. He hasn't in years, right? Really since Grace was killed. I mean, that I don't know about you, dude, but when I'm deep in debt to the sleep bank, I don't function right, and I would probably be seasoned up too, dude. Like I need it, sleep, right? And so everyone does. So I mean, I think that's one thing where maybe they're starting to be like, okay, maybe we need to show some wear on Tommy from never sleeping. We've never seen him fucking eat.
And we finally are, and I think maybe that's the point. We're seeing him finally like eat, slow down, be naked, be vulnerable. I mean, maybe what they're trying to show is that despite all that he wants to proclaim, Tommy Shelby still has limitations. Maybe that's kind of what they're going with here, is to try to give us that kind of juxtaposition between, he knows his limitations, but he wants to be rid of them so badly that he's doing whatever it takes to try to fool himself into thinking that he truly does not have any.
It's going to be a complex thing with Tommy. Tommy is a complex dude. What I'm saying, Magnum Mills, it's more complex than that.
Sometimes, it really is. You can't just be like, yo, kill her, kill B. It just doesn't, sometimes Jerry Garcia isn't even related to the guy who's Andy Garcia's brother. I mean,
Barry Garcia.
Barry Garcia, dude. You don't even know sometimes, man. That brings us right to the end of the episode here, where Tommy kind of, snaps out of it, wakes up from the seizure, tells everyone, oh, he's fine. He answers the phone. He gets, Lizzie there, and she's like, Ruby has a fever of 101. Nothing is working. You need to come home now. And then when Tommy gets there, the doctor says, Lizzie tells Tommy that the doctor said that they shouldn't get close to Ruby just in case, as Ruby is coughing up blood. Tommy responds by going into his office, picking up the phone, and calling Esme. And then we cut to
yes,
the red right hand.
Absolutely, bro. This is big. I told you before, I think it's going to be a running back by committee when it comes to replacing Polly. And Esme may have a bigger role here than what originally planned. And I think that she is going to come in and this is going to be her world, whether good or bad for Tommy and Ruby, but it's going to be centered around this gypsy shit and this curse.
Yeah, Esme can be my sleeper of the year. She could come in like hard and be cool with B. How weird would it be if she wanted to hook it up with Arthur? I don't know why all of a sudden I was like, oh, well, just a way to keep her in the orbit and make Arthur better. He gets a little sober or something. I don't know. Just saying.
I mean, John would
try to get my man
approve.
Arthur laid. I'm sorry.
He deserves it, dude. He needs it. He needs it. Yeah, great scene. I mean, I'm a little worried for Ruby here. I hate that it's her. I wish it could have been the boy, just because I don't know. It could be Charlie. But I feel for Ruby. I'm worried about it. Really, Lizzie here. I mean, she just has so much pressure here, and you can tell she's very scared, coughing up blood, seeing hallucinations. It's weird because Ruby was fine at the beginning of this episode, and then it's back. So it's clearly something that's not medical. It's this crazy gypsy shit, dude. It's crazy.
Or something environmental or whatever. Like, I was trying to tie it together somehow with Tommy drinking all the water, and somehow like they were filtering the water with something that was poisoning them or something or whatever. I don't, trying to reach or whatever. I mean, that's what happens sometimes. Sometimes, I don't know. Are we forgetting anything else? I mean, like that was the episode, right? I mean, have we missed anything? We forgetting anything?
I don't think so, Magnum Mills, and I'm ready to dive in, here a little bit. But actually, dude, I think we might be forgetting something. I think we are here. I think we're forgetting
fucking something. Fucking February. Fucking Febreze.
Finn.
Mojo.
Finn.
I was saying
forgot about Finn.
We
forgot about Finn again.
They forgot about Finn. But he wasn't in this episode, was he?
He was not in this episode. We didn't see Finn with the chiseled chin.
So we're sorry, Finn, without your, chiseled chin or your tilted brim. I know you're slim, but we'll see you next time. Right? I mean, maybe. I mean, hopefully. We need more Shelbys, but Finn, sorry. We don't mean to, make it that obvious that we like Arthur better, so.
Sorry, Finn, for that. I mean, he's fucking Arthur. I mean, there's just Arthur. Phew. That is a relief, Magnum Mills. Sorry, Flynn.
Yeah, just sorry, dude. I mean, what are you going to say? Except I guess you could say like, sorry. Like if you're going to say dynasty, you have to say sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry and dynasty.
Sorry.
Sorry. I go all Scottish with it. And I mean, dude, so, that covers the Shelbys, right? Because we did all about Arthur already. And that's going to bring us to the point where I have to ask before we start handing out awards or hardware. I think, is there anything else that we haven't really touched on from episode 2 here that you'd like to talk about?
I think one thing that I really liked, Magnum Mills, and I thought this was cool, is, and we talk about this quite a bit with the show, is the needle drops and the music that we use. And we saw for the second week in a row here in this season, they used that remix to the Johnny Cash song, Ain't No Grave, that can hold this body down. And that was pretty cool. They showed it again. And that's kind of one of those things, man, where it's like, that's a little bit of foreshadowing too, dude. Like that's some dead man walking shit. And, it's kind of all about Tommy dying or not. And that song is just another foreshadowing thing here as Tommy really battles this season.
And that's also the second straight episode where we've gotten a very prominent shot of a gramophone, like bumping loud, like diegetic period appropriate music that we can hear.
Yeah. So
I don't know if that's a running theme, but I mean, dude, those are, again, that's like the Alexa of the day or whatever. Like if you had the dough, that was your, what's your go-to for playing your beats or whatever. But definitely something that, has carried over, once is happenstance, twice is coincidence. If it happens a third time, I think we have a trend.
Absolutely, Magnum Mills. And even though we're not quite ready to hand out those red right hands for this episode, we do have to hand out our awards. Why don't you hit us off first, bro, and let me know your favorite moment or scene of this episode.
Yeah, I can do that. And, I went back and forth here, but let's be honest. I had to make sure you weren't going to pick the same one, but I had to make sure we weren't going to, pick the same one. But dude, the scene with Tommy and Elfie is just amazing. I mean, my main problem with the scene was that it was so good and there was so much going on that I couldn't pick just one line or one moment. Just everything about it, from the way it starts with Tommy, in the elevator coming down with that red light to the very end where Alfie's like, what are we talking about again here? It's just masterful on all levels, incredibly shot. The shadows, the lighting, the dialogue, the acting. It's just, again, 10 out of 10, absolutely fucking perfect. Some people might complain that, maybe they've kept Alfie around too long or something. No. Could you overuse him? Yeah, maybe it's possible, but the show never has. Maybe that's partially due to, the availability of Tom Hardy. But again, just another Alfie Tommy scene that goes right in the books is another classic.
Couldn't agree more, man. I'm going to go. I went back and forth with this dude. And one thing I realized is that there's so many good scenes in this and you could pick so many. I was going to go, Tommy with Uncle Jack. I thought that was great. I was going to go Tommy with Arthur. I thought that was great, but I'm actually going to go Tommy with Laura McKee when Ada comes in. And that whole scene involving, Tommy and Laura, the first time they meet, and Tommy's basically giving her an offer. And then Ada comes in and Tommy's like, so will that be a yes? And Laura says, well, this was not the type of meeting I was expecting. And Ada says, it never is. And, Tommy says, will it be a yes or a no? And Laura says, it'll be a yes. And Ada's like, it always is. And that was just such a cool scene. And I thought throughout there when Tommy, gave the circle speech, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, maybe with some of our favorite dialogue, but that was just such an outstanding scene for me. And really, you saw Tommy while he's working and he's politicking and he's strategizing and he's getting what he needs, but you saw a little bit of the real Tommy, at least from his political ideology. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Man, I want to, kind of call you a little bit of a Countach, because that was going to be my, my favorite piece of dialogue, my quote of the episode, but I can pivot to something different here. And, I'll just do it. And again, I thought that line, where it says the answer is always yes. It's just so perfect, because she's also like so matter of fact, but also fed up with the fact that Tommy's always right. And she kind of just wants to be done with it. So I'm going to shift it over here to a different Tommy and Ada exchange. This one is outside of the garrison, when they're having a little fight about Arthur and whatnot. And Tommy says something like, Ada, this will be the end of it. Do you hear me? This is the way out for all of us. And along the way, I will be doing good. And Ada says, no, along the way, you're going to make yourself a lot of fucking money. And then Tommy says, all right, fair enough. I mean, that's all right. Fair enough. Now, is that not the quintessential? And then Tommy starts spinning into, all the other good, it'll help everyone else. But at the end of the day, it gets down to, when it comes to limitations, there's also no limitation on what Tommy wants too. He does seem to want the world and everything in it.
Yes, he does. And I think he's going to do everything in his power to get it or die trying. I just don't see it being any other way when it comes to a guy like Tommy Shelby. Maggie Mills, for me, the dialogue, I've pivoted around with this too. I'm going to Uncle Jack and Tommy. And I just thought this was incredible how they kind of open up. And, they're kind of, Uncle Jack's kind of giving him some hard questions. And they're talking, the first time I killed a man, was the first man I ever killed was a priest. What about you? And Tommy, gives a green-eyed Prussian boy, in the war. And, they have this kind of deep conversation here, but at the same time, kind of trying to one up and big dick each other and see who the alpha is. And I just thought it was really cool that Tommy, he's making his pitch, and essentially he's telling Uncle Jack what he can do for him. And Uncle Jack says, in exchange, I have to give you the right to sell your opium in South Boston. And Tommy says, well, it's either that or, you deal with Winston Churchill without my intel, and I sell to the South Boston Jews. And Uncle Jack says, you got some balls. And then Tommy says, well, what'll it be? And then you just get him saying, I'll think very hard about everything you've said. I mean, that's a wild answer, and it's ballsy of an answer, because there's no way that you can understand what that actually means. And it could have you second guessing it if you're Tommy. And that's exactly what it's intended to do from a guy like Uncle Jack, is make Tommy second guess. Did I say something that he's going to try to murder me and my entire family? Is he going to agree? You know, this is really a high level chess match between these two. And I just thought this scene kicked ass, and the dialogue was really good. They've got chemistry, those two, and you can see it, you know, happening already.
Yeah, as you referred to earlier, there was always going to be kind of a high bar here. And as I, you know, predicted last episode, I thought Uncle Jack would ultimately be paid by Stephen Graham. So when we got to this scene in the church, it took me a minute to realize, like, oh shit, this is Uncle Jack, but that's mostly because I don't want to be wrong. It happens. And again, like you said, great chemistry. And I think this was, again, just a pure dick measuring contest. Both had never met each other before. They'd only heard things about each other. They were trying to kind of size each other up, figure out the best kind of way to go forward. You know, do they want to attack each other? Do they want to be friends? And I thought that, you know, you kind of try to gun dick me which one, you know, left with the upper hand. You know, I really think that it was a pretty clear split here, and both kind of walked away, you know, being fairly, you know, impressed with their opponent here. And that brings us to, you know, the thing that you've all been waiting for, that MVP, the most valuable Peaky of the episode. And I don't know why Jamie thought it was funny that on a Peaky Blinders contest, we use Peaky instead of player, but I like that he laughed, because we like it when anybody laughs. But let me tell you, Jamie G, this has been a tough one, man. I really thought about it, but here it relates to something I said earlier. I have to give my MVP to Tommy Shelby. I'm going to say that there's only 6 episodes in the season. I can max out twice to Tommy, but I'm going here because, again, he's in every scene, I think, except for the one with Gina and Michael, right? He's basically carrying this episode, and he gets himself into every one of Jay-Z's 99 problems. I mean, he is just going, he's sticking his hand in the beehive, you know, he's kicking the dog, he's doing whatever it takes to piss everybody off. And we're assuming it's all part of, you know, Tommy Shelby's great plan, because it always has been. But it also seems that, you know, maybe deep down, you know, he might have a little bit of a death wish, or think that, you know, he doesn't know how long he has or something. So, you know, he might not be operating under the rules that we thought. So but again, throughout the episode, he at least breaks even in every exchange that he has, generally dealing with some pretty formidable foes. So got to give it up here. Give my most valuable Peaky, Tommy Shelby. Jamie G?
Man. Yeah, how can you not give it up for Tommy? I mean, he's definitely most valuable.
Well, I'll only do it twice, because you could probably give it to him every episode. And, you know, even though it's a big ensemble cast, he is a clear first lead. So easy to give it to him.
Easy. And he did an outstanding job in what was largely a chess piece episode of them setting up a lot of shit. He kept it interesting. And really did a great job here as they built the episode around all the different things he's got his hands in while setting up all those moves. Just a really good job for what would be considered maybe a slower chess piece type episode, even though it really didn't feel that way. Magnum Mills, for me, mine should be called MVA, because it's all about the most valuable author. I've got to give it up for my guy, Arthur. Okay, the range this dude plays. Can we just walk through just a couple of snippets of Arthur, the evolution of Arthur? You know, from being a raging alcoholic to kicking the shit out of anybody, being a loose cannon, to beating people to death, to becoming depressed and suicidal over that, to snapping out of it with becoming and finding a love and passion around cocaine and banging a lot of chicks, to doing that for years, to finding Jesus, to falling off the wagon hard after losing your spouse, you know, to getting hard on the alcohol and blow again, to now being a full-blown opium and heroin addict. I mean, this dude has range, but guess what? The one thing that never ends in all those different versions of Arthur is the fact that his presence remains at an all-time high. Whenever he's around, it creates a level of chaos. You don't know what he's going to do. He comes in, he's a total loose cannon, no matter what he's on, no matter what his mind state is. And I absolutely love it. And even in the scene when it's limited, I just thought it was fantastic the way they did this. And it was funny. It added a level of humor to an episode and a show where you need it every once in a while.
Oh shit. I just kind of put it like, he is kind of the Sam Elliott character from Roadhouse. Now I just want to see the actor that plays Arthur starring in a Roadhouse remake or reboot somehow. So, let's make that happen. And, I gave my MVP to Arthur last week, so I'm not going to complain. Obviously, we've handed out 4 of these awards. 50% of them have gone to Arthur. So you can't accuse us of hating on Arthur. You can accuse us of many things, but hating on Arthur Shelby, not one of them. And
that is not one of them. Magnum Mills, could we call that crossover Pub House, where they're, it's a British pub, or maybe Garrison Ale House, something. I'm still working on it. But Magnum Mills, that does bring us to the time of the episode where we hand out our red right hands. We're going to give a grade on this episode on a scale of 1 to 10 red right hands, with 10 being the best possible score. Magnum Mills, you gave your MVP first, so I'll go first here. And I am going to give season 6, episode 2, 8.5 red right hands. That's right. There's 8 hands, 3.5 fingers. No, 2.5 fingers. 8 hands, 2.5 fingers. He's the mathematician. I'm the MD Esquire. That's where I'm going. 8.5 red right hands, Magnum Mills. I thought it was a really good episode because of the fact that it was a little bit of a slower chess piece move episode where they're setting up lots of storylines. It's really impressive to me how they managed to do that while creating new storylines with Tommy's seizure, the advancement of Ruby, and the Gray Man coming for her and Tommy. They introduced a new character. They brought back an old character in Elfie, introducing the new one, as I mentioned, in Uncle Jack. They did all this in an episode that was primarily just kind of staging shit for future episodes. So I got to really give it to them. I'm going 8.5 here, and I'm damn proud of that. It might even be a tad too low.
I mean, maybe you should do less street medicine and more sales, because you sold me a little bit there. I was in like somewhere between a flat 8 and 8.2. Listen to all that. Man, I'm going to go up to an 8.3 again. Almost nothing that I overly disliked in this episode, but I think this was mostly a preview of things to come where, like you said, we're moving all the chess pieces in place. So we get kind of, little teases of the big scenes we're going to get later without quite getting there. I don't know that anything super consequential happens here other than a bunch of panties being dropped for Tommy metaphorically. So I'm going to go 8.3. Got me up there a little bit still. Again, good grade. If I came home with an 83, yeah, whatever. What are your parents going to really say? Like, oh, whatever. Bitch about the 17% you didn't get.
I think it might even get you a freaking, reading Rainbow at Pizza Hut, dude. Back when that was
some book it. You want some book it, but yeah, dude.
Book it. Yeah, book it.
Yeah, I don't know when Pizza changed their shit, but back in the day, those little pan pizzas were like the best thing ever. I don't know why.
What happened? That went from being like the best.
And why is like soda so much better out of these weird red plastic cups? Like you just got to use a cup. Is that what makes it? I don't know if that's what makes it.
I don't know, man. A lot of nostalgia there. Magnum Mills, this episode was something, dude. I don't know about you, but I am super duper pumped for the next episode of Peaky Blinders. This season is not disappointing at all so far.
Oh, dude. I mean, like, there's a lot of things I would like to do. And, would be one of the most fun ones. Like, do as much opium as Arthur. No, wait, no, not that one. But, let's, make some nice, well-informed predictions and wildly speculate about what will happen next time on Peaky Blinders, because holy shit. And I'll start off by saying, I think next episode we see Arthur and he is very subdued and he's down to like beer or marijuana or something, if anything.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we're going to finally see Arthur in a little bit more of a prominent role as he tries to get Tommy to give him Linda. And that's going to create a little bit of trust issue and beef between Tommy and Arthur, as Tommy never plans to deliver, but used it to get Arthur clean. We'll see Arthur will be pushed to the limit, but will he turn on Tommy? Probably not. Magnum Mills, for me, I am going to make a bold prediction here that we get Aunt Polly in every single episode, whether it's just her voice saying there will be a war and one of you will die. I'm not sure who. I think that comes every damn episode. And I think we'll get at least one visual shot back of her from the past. Maybe in one of these hallucinations or issues with when Esma comes back into the scene. That's my bold prediction. But we get at least her voice in every single episode.
Well, that could be cool. You know, I'm a little gun shy here after not being so good at these, but you know what? They're fun. And, you know, I got to sit here. I have to try to make a non-Arthur one. And I wanted to try to, you know, I think I've already said that I think Tommy is going to A, use alcohol again, and then B, have sex with, you know, either Gina, Diana, or maybe even Laura from the RA. I mean, I don't think it's bold to say that only one at once, but maybe he gets the 2 or the 3. You know, I'm not sure how it goes. You know, and then the thing I was talking about too was, will there be some relation between Tommy's seizures and Ruby's sickness? You know, we saw her coughing up blood and the doctor talking about, you know, them getting infected. From what I can tell at that time, they're past like the Spanish flu and everything. So I'm not sure, tuberculosis or something, like what it would, I don't know, but maybe there is a chance that, you know, it's not just mental for Tommy. There is something physical causing his, you know, his hallucinations and whatnot. But I mean, it's pretty clear that, you know, he's actually having seizures. So, you know, you can't really say that that's not a thing, but I'm just saying that it might not be something just purely medical. There might be environmental cause as well.
Yep, we will find out. It's certainly something. I will say that Esma comes back and she lasts longer than one episode. I think she remains for the remainder of this season.
Yeah, that's fair. And I will say that I think, you know, because we kind of talked about it a little bit in the Alfie scene, but I think what you're going to see happen is that, you know, it looks like right now Tommy has to deal with Alfie, but of course it's going to look like Alfie double crosses Tommy to work with Uncle Jack again. But then, it turns out that they had it all worked out ahead of time, and it's a triple cross where Alfie double crossed Tommy. Tommy knew it was coming, and they set it all up. Yeah, it's a little Ocean's 11 heist movie-ish, but you know what? We all want Tommy and Alfie to win, be on the same team. I want Alfie to be there in the movie, so you know what? I'm not hating. I'm saying Alfie fake betrays Tommy in a triple cross. They're both back in the movie.
Man, oh man, I hope so, Magnum Mills. I know one thing. We'll be here each and every week to break this thing down and to give future predictions on where this incredible show is going and every single second of it that we're enjoying. It's not quite like hitting the next button on Netflix, but we won't have to wait too long for the next episode of Peaky Blinders. Will we, Magnum Mills?
Not at all, Jamie G. We'll be back next week to talk about episode 3 of season 6, titled Gold, which is scheduled to air Sunday, March 13th on BBC One. Kind of sucks because I had this little prediction about how the episode titles were going to start with black, and yeah, that didn't happen. So,
could this be a little Aberama Gold? We'll find out. I just want to thank everyone for listening, watching, subscribing, commenting, reaching out to us, whatever the case may be. Right here on PBP, the Peaky Blinders podcast. Magnum Mills, hit them with our contact social media info.
Oh, thank you, like he said, for listening, watching, whatever. We're PBP, the Peaky Blinders podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform by searching for PBP, Peaky Blinders, and on social media at Peaky Podcast. If you have any more detailed feedback you'd like to send, you can send it to Peaky Blinders Podcast at gmail.com. We're from the Joe Blow Football Show, who you can find at joeblowfootballshow.com and on social media at Joe Blow Show. We also podcast about fantasy football, dynasty football, DFS, wagering, fun stuff. Might make you a couple bucks. It's all free at Season Gap Fantasy Football, which you can find on your favorite podcast platform by searching for Season Gap Fantasy and on social media at Season Gap FF. I'm Magnum Mills. This is Jamie G. This has been PBP, a Peaky Blinders podcast. Thank you very much for listening and or watching. And remember,
everyone has a plan until they get hit with that red right hand. We'll see you right here next week, right here on the PBP, Peaky Blinders podcast. Thanks again for listening.
PBP.
This has been PBP, a Peaky Blinders podcast presented by the Joe Blow Football Show. We are not in any way affiliated with Peaky Blinders, BBC Studios, or Netflix. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Any views or opinions expressed here are personal and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations who may or may not be associated with the Joe Blow Football Show. If you have any questions, please contact us at peakyblinderspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment. By order of the Peaky fucking Blinders.